I told you I have a guest at the Resilient Kid podcast today that is not only going to help you be more confident, not only help you be more brave, but actually to be happier. Welcome to Washington, Ali. How are you?
I am absolutely fantastic, Ashley. I'm really excited for today's podcast because I get to speak about my younger self and also I get to speak about my younger self relating from how I was parented by my mum to give people that worldly context as well. So I'm excited. Yeah. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks, Washington. You and I met at the Big Festoon, Danny Wallace's crazy event. And it is so amazing. You were talking, and I heard you tell your story about your mom and kind of the impact that she has and stuff on your life. So, would you tell us a little bit about you and also, obviously, our listeners to hear that as well?
Definitely, definitely. So, who I am, I would say that I'm a creation and I create myself every single day. I create myself with confident, brave, and happy, but I also create myself as God's love, the Alpha, the Omega, intelligent, talented, and lovable, and a whole load more, and I'll show up in that way in my life, or I do my best to every single day and remind myself that what I do is I coach people who are rich in results but poor in peace be better than they look on paper because you can have all the results in the world, yet if you are not stepping into your work, your life, your family as the alive, awake, and happiest you can possibly be, then your whole entire life experience is just rubbish, to be fair, And I help people connect to that. And then when they do that, they amplify their impact, not only in their business, but also in their home and family life. So that's who I am and what I do. And then my mum, I share with people, my mum is my guardian angel. She, from a very young age, she was a chess Olympiad. She is a sister to four other siblings, all guys as well. So you can imagine what that was like for her. Very sometimes competitive, sometimes difficult, sometimes loving, but she had to learn to hold her own. And who she is for me is, yes, my guardian angel, but also someone who has given an infinite amount of love, not just to myself and my siblings, but to everyone around her. Her cup has always been full, and through that fullness, the miracles that I've seen for my family and also for other people, and just the context of the joy. Sometimes, yes, monetary rewards or whatever, but really the way that people feel around her, the trusted person, the person that you can go to get the truth, and the way she's really created a whole entire universe of knowing, understanding responsibility, understanding resilience, and understanding love as well, which is a very, very difficult concept to share with people, especially when things in life happen that can make you bitter, stubborn, or you name it. The way that she's been able to create that for herself and for us as her children, she's truly, truly an incredible woman. So, yeah.
Do you know what that like A really warms my heart to hear you. I hope that, one day my kids talk about me in the way that you talk about your mum, Washington, because it is respectful, it is with grace, and it is just with, like, if you're not watching this on YouTube, go over and see Washington talk about his mum because he is just glowing and it is beautiful. So I hope to God, I hope and pray that one day my kids speak about me in such a reverent way. But there was a few things there that I wanted to pick up. So you first started saying, like, I am a creator and I create, if I remember correctly, I am a creation and I create my life every day. And actually, when you first said it, I was like, now I've heard you say that sentence before, but obviously it was in a big crowd. And I was, probably doing daft things, getting Danny's props ready and stuff. But actually, when you just said it then, it really hit me. And the reason it hit me, I think, was because I have a young son who's 15 who wants to be an actor when he grows up. And actually, we talk about him creating these characters. And I've never really thought about it in the same way as you've just said it, around actually, we can create this every day, and so I'm saying to Finn, like, create this, tell me what's about this character. So he's, at the moment, he's just got a part in Sound of Music. and he is going to be the captain. So he's got to be a dad. He's got to be that, that kind of shifts from a very strict character to a very loving character. And we were talking about how he makes that transition, but to think about doing that in our everyday, that is just really powerful, and really powerful, I think, to say that to kids, to teens who don't realize they've got choice. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Y- The word choice is so perfect. And how I came to this is a story relating to my mum. So when I was 17, I ran away from home, dropped out of college to start making music. And so I thought I was going to be the next Stormzy and Kanye West before or whatever, And so I go out into the world and I start hosting shows in Southend. That's where I'm originally from, doing the pub nights, charging my friends £2 to come in to somehow try and earn a living, and then starting to scale it up. We're getting shows in Scala and London and doing all of these things. Now, whilst this is happening, I get involved in smoking a lot of weed and participating in doing drugs and things like that. And what happens for me is that my mind starts to become deteriorated. The weed is making me paranoid, anxious, starting to second guess myself, starting to second guess my friends, and it creates this whole entire world of paranoia. Now, what happens is one of the first triggering moments in that time was my mum would actually go out to look for me. So she knew where I wasn't staying because, to be fair, I'm going to say mother's intuition because you haven't fully told me yet. But she knew where I was staying, and one day I'd left my flat. I'm going to do a gig, and I'm half drunk, right? And she stops me on the street, gets out of the car. She said, "What?" And we have a spat. I don't remember the spat completely, but we have a spat. She's asking me to come home, and I just carry on off. And then maybe 3 to 4 months after that, I'm starting to hit my lowest point. I sneak back home. Back doors are always left open, always used to be left open. I go home, no one's at home, and I decide to stay there. And one day, my mom's friend at the time comes home. She came home to check on the house, saw me. We had a conversation. He told my mom. Maybe 2, 3 days later, mom came back home, um, and she said it's okay. You can stay here. And my older brother was at uni at the time. I have a younger brother and sister as well, and they embraced me with love. And my mum said, "Look, don't treat Washi any differently. He's your brother. He's going through a very difficult time. I don't want you to be frustrated around him. I don't want you to be angry. Just help him feel safe at home." 8 months down the line, I'm still in that anxious, paranoid state, bearing in mind I don't trust my mum, I don't trust my older brother, I don't trust my siblings because I'm just in this very paranoid world. I would call it undiagnosed psychosis, but you're a therapist, like or psychotherapist. We can chat about that later, maybe. And so 8 months later, she called me to her bedroom. A week before that, she says to me, she buys me a pair of shoes, help me maybe do some retail therapy, right? Called me into her bedroom. She asked me, bring those Air Forces I just bought you and bring them back. My Vans were completely messed up because I was a skater. And she says to me, those Vans represent where you are currently in life, my son. And I need you to help me help you because I can't pull you out of the situation. If I could, I would. And I look at them and I hit this, I'm in shock that she even said that to me. Like, these rubbish shoes are who I am as a person. And then moments passed by and then she said, look at your Air Force, are brand new, they're clean, they represent something else, something else that you could have. And then we sat in silence again. And then she said, pick, like, what do you want? Do you want to stay the same or would you like something else? And in that moment, again, I'm still in shock. And I'm like, I don't want to be like these shoes. I took up my Air Forces. I choose my Air Forces. And then she requests that I pick up everything, all my old clothes, all my old shoes, everything in Southend. We have pink bin bags, put them in the bin bags, and then we put them all up in the loft. So it was that moment there that I recognized that I had a choice. And I would say for the parents listening and the teachers listening, I think the most important thing of my journey to recovery was actually a safe space and love and unconditional consideration. And I understand that can be difficult, especially in a school setting or in a home setting, because of there's issues around money, there's issues around behavior, there's your own personal stresses of thinking, are you a good enough parent? Are you a good enough teacher? Yet that container of safety, that container of no matter how weird I was being encouraged to step out of myself. That's the one thing. And I understood that my life was a creation from that point because after I made that choice for to have the Air Forces, I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop hanging around my friends. I'm gonna stop doing this. I'm gonna stop doing that because all of those things relate to this life, that or my old life. And I said I don't want that old life anymore. So I understood from then that simple choice of choosing shoot this new world actually gave me something, gave me momentum, gave me energy, gave me hope, you know. So yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I'm sat here filling up as a mom, but also as well, like some of the words that you used at the top of the podcast around creation and things like that. I thought, what's that going to mean? And that's kind of why I asked you around it because, some people might go, what? He's a creation? Like, where is that coming from? And so I was really glad that you shared that story. But how beautiful, like, to just go, listen, this is the life you have right now, but actually, this is the life you could have. And it's up to you, my son, which one you choose. Or is it something else? I mean, she's a smart cookie, your mum, not to even go, it's either this or this, but actually, you can choose something else as well. But just to very physical, very visual show you your life in front of you and actually 100% you creating it. So that is amazing. Like that is really cool. And I think a real powerful story for us as parents and educators. I work with a huge amount of young people. And one of the biggest things that I say when I'm talking to parents or teachers or educators, and I guess a little story is I was talking to a lady called Sarah Vogel. It's amazing. And she does lots of leadership coaching. She goes into SLT teams with schools and corporates and stuff. But she's also a governor of a school. And she said to me, they're seeing a real rise in anxiety, actually, for young kids. And they don't know why. Is there anything that you can kind of help? Is there anything that you can, tell us that will like, would you have a conversation with them? And I was like, yeah, of course, 100%. And she said, oh, what do you think it is? And I said, they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe. Now, that isn't anything that we ever do intentionally, but I think sometimes we have to intentionally think about it. So we don't make them feel unsafe on purpose, but I think we have to purposely make them feel safe. And I think that's what you're talking about. And I love the fact that, your mum has gone, to your siblings, gone, just leave him alone, give him some time. He's just washy. Let's embrace him. He's back, he's home, he's safe. And one of the big things that I talk about all the time is walking each other home. Whether that's me or you, whether that's me and my kids or clients or, me and my husband, walking each other home, having that thing. And that's what she's done, that, and she's encouraged everybody else around you. And I think if we look at something like bullying, in schools, if we turn around to that bully and we embrace the person who they've picked on, but we embrace that bully into the community and go, we know you're hurting. You are in a safe space here. Just for the listeners, Ali and I have put ourselves on mute for the transcripts, and Ali's like nodding away. But 100%, I feel like that's what's missing. The programs that I'm writing now are around trying to bring that safety for those kids, whether we intentionally or not realize they are not feeling safe right now. And I loved that that's what your mum did for you. It's just beautiful.
Thank you. It really is. It really is. And there's also a piece in what you're sharing. So I have a controversial take about what's happening with mental health, or it could be very controversial. So I'll caveat with this. I'm also a facilitator for a charity called My Student. We go into schools talking about anxiety, depression, exam stress, and social media. And when we go into those schools, there's really a sense of two feelings that are there. the first feeling is, thank goodness someone's come in who is not so far away from me age-wise talking to me about this, and I feel a lot safer, feel a lot more comfortable with someone else sharing their experiences. And then also, it feels like another group who nonchalant, it's not their cup of tea, which is perfectly fine. Yeah, I feel like there's a rise in these cases. Number one, because of there's a lot more awareness, but also number two, because the conversation is so large. And I think that don't quote me on the study, but there was a study around suicides. When a suicide is like mentioned in a newspaper within a local area, suicide rates spike, right? So I think there's this whole entire conversation and study I think that needs to be done around what is the effective amount of this conversation, and where is this conversation peddling us to? Because I understand my individuality. My running away was a whole entire process of me uncovering my own personal sovereignty. Because I didn't feel that because I was like, it's going to sound crazy. I was suffocated by love, right? I was suffocated by structure, you know, and I was craving a bit of chaos. And I needed to go find the chaos, and I needed to embrace myself. And I feel that the conversation, the narrative around mental health is this individualistic narrative, and it's exactly what you're sharing. It's not a communal conversation, because if it was a communal conversation, then it would mean that through your adversity, number one, your community could help you rise, and then also independently you could rise. Yet the conversation that I hear most often is about self sovereignty, and I think that really takes away a huge part of people really being able to call each other out, or even comfort each other and really act as like have some really constructive disagreement with your peers, not necessarily just people who are older than you as well. You know, because sometimes you can create yourself, as I'm saying, into a low state, and you can also have other people create you for you, and you rise in that as well. You know, and that's why I'm a coach. I understand that. Yeah, you can actually have conversations with people, and you see them at their highest level, they can stretch out of that. So I don't know, what's your take on that?
So I think there is a massive rise in mental health and the chat about mental health for various different reasons. I think one, COVID had a huge amount to play in it because, and I don't think that obviously COVID itself was horrible because as you know, as a world globally, we lost a lot of people, and that, you know, is awful. But I think what happened is we took our foot off the pedal a little bit and went, now, of course, it's stressful for some because they're trying to hold down a job that's now suddenly gone online, and they might have kids, or they're trying to teach kids online where they normally have them in the classroom, all that. But actually, I think what we missed was there was two things that I think came out of COVID for me. I see it developmentally in the year groups. So, for instance, those sitting their GCSEs right now missed out the transition to high school properly. They didn't do the whole transition from primary to secondary. They didn't, they go into secondary with a, oh, right, we're pulling out now because now you've got to go back home. Now you're going to go online. Now you're not going online. Now you're staying back home. No, you're just going to come in, but you're going to stay in a bubble. So the interaction, the way that we interact, the way that we learn our boundaries off each other, like you're saying, that mirror to friendships where you're a little bit of out of order and your friend goes, oi, washy, stop it, you know, that kind of thing. That was all missed. Younger groups, they miss the parallel play to the interaction. So there's lots of developmental milestones that I think COVID messed up for our kids. But also we missed a huge opportunity. I think as individuals, some of us didn't. And it was, for me and my family, it was one of the best things we did because, you know, what it meant was we regrouped, we thought about our life, and actually we went, let's have a look how this can change for the better. Because those 2 years it was going on, I'm going to be honest, we lived in a caravan because we just started building our house. So it was a bit like, yeah, that face you've got there, Washington, was my face when I realised we were going to be in the caravan. But, you know, I remember the sun was beautiful. We had best summer ever. We were outside playing with sprinklers. We were building our house. It was absolutely amazing. Now, I know I'm very privileged and lucky, that we've worked hard enough to be able to do that. Still not finished, by the way. But, I think we missed an opportunity to embrace a little bit more of the life that we had during COVID. I'm not talking about the fear. I'm not talking about the illness. I'm talking about that us taking a step off the pedal a little bit. So I think you're absolutely right. And everything kind of my kind of philosophy around the resilient kid, the work that I do, is meet them where they're at. So like your mom met you where you were at, wrap them 360. So if it means me, if I'm working with a child, a teen, I get in touch with their teacher, their mum and dad, their bus driver if I need to, so that I can be informed with who this person is in front of me and how they can all wrap round and support them. And it's because, we talk about this village, but are we working this village? Because if you want to walk kids home, if you want them to come along with you as well, we have to show up for them. And I think that's the one thing that when I heard you talk at the big festoon and you were talking about your mum, like it just sent shivers because it only takes, and this is like research, takes one significant person to turn a kid's life around. One. That's all. And it doesn't even have to be for a long time. But if there's one person that shows up and goes, I'm here for you, I hear you, I see you, that can completely change the life around, from research and also my opinion. Something I wanted to just pick up, though, that's enough about me jumping on the bandwagon, but something I wanted to pick up with you, Washington, that you said, and I thought it was really interesting. And this is something that I talk to teens a lot about. It's almost like that walking towards something or walking away from something. But you said, when I picked that trainer, when I picked those new Air Forces, I had to think about what that entails. It's not just about putting on a new pair of trainers. I mean, I think your mum psychologically was very clever going, get all your old stuff, put it in the loft. But actually, you knew that also meant probably the drugs had to stop, probably the friendships would have to stop. And as a young person of 17, 18, that must have been really hard because we know in our DNA, everything in us is to identify with a peer group and pull away from parents. But what if that peer group is not going to get you those new Air Forces, but keep you where the vans are? So I just wanted to ask you to talk a little bit about that because that's hard.
Thank you. That's a part of my story I don't really get to tell a lot, but I felt like I betrayed my own personal vision, and I felt like I betrayed my friend. And it was very, very dark dealing with that internal battle of, oh, I thought this is what I was meant to do with my life, and I thought these were going to be my friends for my life. And it really comes back to, I think there's two main factors there. I think the main factor is I was surrounded by a community who it was like, well, it's pretty good here. It was like I don't have to deal with the pressures of facing these people, right? So I didn't have to like necessarily face myself. I only had to face my thoughts. And and then the second piece to that is I just became very, very it's not, the word is not excited. I became very attached to something else. And because in commitment and acceptance therapy, um, I forgot exactly how it goes, but it's like, okay, you have to face your reality, process the thoughts and emotions of reality, and then that essentially leads to acceptance of reality. In a nutshell, guys, I'm not a pro at it, but it's that's how it kind of goes. And it's like I'd just got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm in a terrible situation. This is an opening. And like my mum didn't offer me greatness. She didn't offer me success. She didn't offer me anything else. It was just you could just something else, And I started chasing that something else. And it was difficult. I was having night terrors every single night from like the withdrawal symptoms, hot sweats, terrible nightmares, and I struggled to sleep most nights. And I was just like, okay, I have to run. I have to run myself to sleep. Um, in the evenings, 4 p.m., run myself to sleep. Just run for 40 minutes and I'll get in and I'll crash. So I think there was a solace in that something else. And why how I'd like to explain it, another way of explaining it is a lot of people, when they're living their life experience, they're basing their future results based on past expectations, or future expectations based on past results. And what the Air Forces did, or what being a creation of my own life is, and teaching other people to do that is that, hey, get to the this has happened. And then after you get to the this has happened, it's like you can kind of wipe it away and then place something brand new there. And that possibility, which was empty, every day I could dream about what it could be. And really, at the beginning, it just looked like don't smoke. It just looked like stay away from your friends. It just looked like try and meditate. It just looked like listen to audio binaural beats on YouTube for when you go to bed. And then as I was developing myself, my mum was like, "Okay, cool. Now go do your sitting guilds because you got low English and math, right? Now go to." And then after that, whilst I was in that, it was like, okay, now I start going to networking events and explore property. And then I got into property and power investor. And then she was like, "Oh wait, no, you're still in Southend. We've got to completely change your environment. My older brother's at uni in Kent. Now go stay with your older brother in his uni accommodation." It was a house, guys. Don't worry, I wasn't staying in his dorm. But and then she like got me a room in his uni page. So I was in a different world. Now go. Then after that, now go do an access course. So then that same person you were talking about gave me a pathway to start following. And from my journey as well, I had a friend, Jordan. Jordan taught me about meditation. He taught me about law of attraction. I'm reverting back a bit more religious to Christianity, but still, those principles stay with me because if he hadn't taught me about meditation, I would have been a bit more lost, a bit more confused. And meditation allowed me to revert my mind. So so I'll go back to your original question, which is like, what was that? It was hoping the possibility of something else. And that possibility of something else, I obsessed about it. And that dominated my world. And even though I was being tormented in my dreams and in my waking life about how I've betrayed this, that, the other, I was obsessed about that brand new thing.
Do you know what? How cool though that that you've, and I say this all the time, is sometimes when we get a glimpse of a hope, like you said, a hope there, there's some kind of glimpse of something different, and we kind of start to compare and contrast. It's amazing because once we've got that, and it's not having all the answers. It's not going, do you know what, today, while I'm asking you to choose these trainers, did you know you're going to be a coach in so long? Did you know I'm going to set you up in a room in a house in Kent near your sibling? No, and sometimes it's just taking that one step, isn't it? Just that one step that you take that can lead you to something else. And I often talk to kids is about, is this going to take you towards the life that you want, or is it going to take you away? And sometimes, and it doesn't matter if it's vaping, if it's sex, if it's drugs, whatever it is that what you want? Is the future you going to thank you for that decision? And once they kind of bring that into reality, and that's not from a, hey, you do drugs, that's not my business, it's from a, what do you want? This is giving you agency. I guess what you were saying before is giving them sovereignty over their own life. And yeah, Washington, I could talk to you all day, like literally talk to you all day. I think you've had such a fascinating life, and you've had such a guardian angel look out for you, wrap you 360 and show you a possibility. But you've made that life for yourself. Your mum's not done this for you, and I think that's really important. And as much as we love Mother Ali, we've got to say this is down to Washington. But actually, it shows me two things. It gives me, like, fills my heart that one, that significant person makes a real impact. But two, it doesn't matter what's going on, we can always make a change. We can always make a change. And sometimes that's with support, but sometimes it's just a small change. But, you never know where that leads. And it is just about taking that step at a time, isn't it?
It 100% is. One foot in front of the other. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And when COVID started, I created this funny slogan, or I love it now, but I used to think it's so cheesy. It's like wherever you survive, you can thrive, and wherever you can be authentically you, you can become alive. You know, and those are the steps that you want to be walking through. You know, and if I may, what I take my clients through is a 4 step, and it's like you said, you don't need someone to take you through these steps, but it's first is there's two realms. It's your internal orbit and your external. Your internal is your grand vision and rewriting your code. Your grand vision is who you want to be. It's not about what you want to do with your life, in my personal opinion. It's actually just about the type of person you want to become in the future. And if you get that clear, if you are a person of quote integrity, love, confidence, and positivity, like you put those words there, then you figure out what does that look like for you in your personal expression. And then secondly, in the internal orbit, it's all about rewriting your code. It's really just being able to evaluate yourself. And I a lot of people think self-awareness is just about how well you understand yourself, but what self-awareness is actually how well you understand yourself and how other people view you as well. You know, so if you have trusted people around you, right? Ask two to three of them, like, what do you think my strengths are? What do you think my weaknesses are? What do you think I'm most reliable for? What do you think I'm most unreliable? And ask them to be honest with you. You will have a depth of knowledge about what is missing or what's happening in your life that's not working, and that's what's happening in your life that's causing the results that you don't want to have, right? And then, so that's internal. All of that will give you data and information. Once you have that data and information, you move to the second phase, which is your external orbit. And your external orbit is the bold move and anchoring systems. And your bold move is the one foot in front of the other. I started off with literally trying to go to bed. That was my step one. How can I sleep better? And yours can look however yours can look. It's just one step in front of the other and making that bold move. And then the second part of the external orbit is really about evaluating the relationships you have in your life. And what I mean by that is how much love are you giving to the people in your life? The ones that you actually care about, right? Not everyone, but the people you really love. And then the second thing is how much love are you receiving back from them? And the difficult thing here for a lot of people is having that conversation. And you don't have to say you don't love me, right? It's a conversation of like, look, hey, I have seen A, B, C, D happen, and it's impacting me this way. It's making me feel A, B, C, D. And what I'd like to A, B, C, D. Can we work on that together? Right? And and then for the school teachers and also like the heads of years, the head teachers, what you really want to be looking at is the environment you created at your school. What I call it like good boss, bad boss, to be polite for this podcast. The good boss is someone who's created a psychologically safe environment, yet the results aren't you aren't producing the results. And the results that you want to be producing are, of course, happy and productive children. But also, you want this. There's a certain type of results you're after. You're after good Ofsted. You're after good GCSE exam results as well. But you live in that world where the school's just a really great place to be in, but there's a bit too much chaos that should really be at school. And then secondly, there's a second type of boss, should I say? And that second type of boss is has their foot on people's necks and things work so well. But the psychological safety within that environment causes people anxiety, causes people stress, causes people to always be walking on eggshells around you. And how you know that this is what people do around you is that they're always asking for a second opinion, whether that be from you or whether that be from someone else. So if you have your internal orbit and your external orbit. Internal is about you, external is about other people and taking action out in the real world, right? If you have those things combined, then you start to create a life where you thrive. And I can guarantee you, you'll be confident, brave, and happy.
And you know what? You're so right there. And I see that all the time, kind of going into schools or going into some corporate work that I do. And it is that, yes, the systems and process might be working, but actually nobody's happy. Nobody's waiting to make those brave moves, and I think we ask kids to be brave all the time, and then when they are, we don't reward them for it, and it's a shame. Washington, as we are just going to close the podcast, what advice would you give your younger self?
The advice I'd give to my younger self is actually to be a bit more braver in my communication. If I was braver in my communication, I wouldn't have needed to run away. I would have developed the skills I have now a lot sooner as well. And also, on the note on resilience, I'd like to add the word anti-fragility, right? If I was able to have those difficult conversations there, I would have actually grown from those difficult conversations. I wouldn't have regressed. I wouldn't have felt so suppressed. I wouldn't have felt so small, really. And I don't mean small as in I didn't have confidence, I had a world of confidence. I just didn't know how to express that confidence in the multitude of ways, whether it be music, sport. Like I've lived an actually really varied life, right? So it's like just you've got to be brave enough to communicate, Wash. That's what I'd say. And I would help him plan and strategize the first things to say.
Washington Alley, this has been a revelation. I have loved every minute of it. And you know, one of the things that as a therapist going into schools and working with young people, it is so heartwarming and hopeful for the future, for the that there's somebody like you going out there, sending your message, going into schools, talking to young people, getting up on stages, talking in front of thousands to really spread that message of hope and of bravery. And yeah, I just want to say a massive thank you to you for coming on the Resilient Kid podcast. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much for having me. Like I said, there's so many parts of my stories I haven't been able to share. And this conversation has also been like quite revolutionary for me as well. It's brought me a lot of peace, a lot of happiness. It's like I've got some stuff like stuff.
And if you see Washington, he's already Zen. So that's really cool. Washington, thank you. Please have a look at the show notes underneath. Go over to Washington's IG account. Tell us your Instagram handle just so people can hear it because they quite often just flick right over, but it is in the show notes.
It's at becomealive.washington.
Yeah, so go over because his Insta is on fire, by the way, guys. So absolutely go over there. Thank you once again. You know where to find us. Lots of love from Washington and myself to you. Keep doing what you're doing. And as Washington says, one step in front of the other. That's all it takes.